So here's the question, Can I replace the T778 with Dirac Live with something significantly less expensive and just takes up less space? And so what I have here is I have the MiniDSP Flex. This is a new product and they're just restocking right now. So that's kind of why I've held off on this review, because although I think it's awesome, they didn't have it in stock. So I didn't think that that was useful. So now they're restocking and now you can get them. I'll leave a link in the description below and hopefully they're in stock by then. I also want to make sure that it's clear that it's not a replacement for the NAD T778. That thing does a lot more. It has HDMI, so it handles video, has multiple HDMI ports, and just much more advanced, has a touch screen and multiple channels, I believe 9 channels of processing and amplification. So that's not what this video is about. This video is about if you only want a 2-channel setup, maybe a 2.1, what can you get away with, right? Because I hear a lot of people saying that you have to spend a lot on amplifiers and things like that. And, you know, I personally don't believe that. This system right here sounds clean. It plays more than loud enough for me. So the MiniDSP, obviously it does DSP correction, which I can do manual correction. You can also upgrade that so that it can use Dirac Live also, but I'm not doing that for the moment. I'm just gonna use manual calibration. We'll see how that goes. And for the amplification, I'm just using this OSD Nero amplifier, nothing expensive. It's also a small class D amp. I should also mention that the DSP Flex has a few different inputs. It has analog, the USB, so it acts as a DAC in itself. And I believe that the DAC is pretty good as far as performance on its own. So it also has Bluetooth and LDAC, so you have different codecs, so you can stream on the higher codecs if you prefer to use Bluetooth. I don't know how much I'll use that, but it's cool that it's an option. So if you're familiar with MiniDSP, basically it's a place where you can put a bunch of parametric EQ filters. You can use it as an active crossover. And so it's very powerful. It's just like a little computer that allows you to do stuff with your audio. This particular one also comes with a remote, so that's handy. It has an interface so you can see what's going on the front of it, as well as a volume knob there, so that makes it easier. You have the option for 4 different presets, so you can change and try different combinations out. This has 2 analog inputs and 4 outputs. So I'm going to be using the 4 outputs, for 1 for left, 1 for right, and the third one for the subwoofer. One of the requirements is that I want this to be simple to use. I don't want somebody to have to figure out like, how does this work, you know? And preferably, I would like to just use the NVIDIA Shield remote to control everything. So one reason why this makes sense for me specifically is because I've tried it with you know, different systems where I had surround sound, and it just never seemed to work out, just because, you know, I'd have to put speakers somewhere over here by the kitchen area or here, and nothing really seemed to make too much sense. So I'm just gonna keep it to a 2-channel system. I'm happy with the way it sounds. We don't watch a ton of stuff here, and when we do, it's usually just the kids or, you know, something we're doing passively. Class D is getting a lot better nowadays, and I don't have any reservations as far as using Class D. Like I said, the NAD is about $3,000 and it also has Class D amplification. I'm sure that those amplifiers are more advanced in certain ways. They probably measure better, things like that. You would find a bigger difference by learning how to change your PEQ settings, learning how to calibrate, rather than trying to find different sounds using different amplifiers. That's just how I roll. So this is the remote that the MiniDSP Flex comes with. It has volume control, power, mute. You know, you can change input sources, change Dirac profiles, settings, things like that. I only wanted to use one remote for power and volume, and I figured out a way to do that. One remote to rule them all. If you have an NVIDIA Shield, you can use the MiniDSP Flex as a DAC, so you can stream wirelessly to the best speakers in your house, and it'll sound way better than any Bluetooth speaker you can find. So the NVIDIA Shield doesn't have an audio out. It only has HDMI out, so you usually have to turn on your TV, or in my case a projector, in order to cast to it. Because the MiniDSP is acting as a USB DAC, you can actually go RCA out to an amplifier to your main speakers. I'm just gonna go ahead and cast from here, hit play. So I believe you can actually do this with a MiniDSP 2x4 HD also, but the Flex has a screen so you can see actually what's going on in the volume. So the process is pretty simple. You just use the USB that comes with the MiniDSP Flex. So that plugs into one of the USB ports on the back of the NVIDIA Shield. On the Shield, you'll see in the settings, if you go to display and sound, advanced settings, audio output, you'll see here it's set to the MiniDSP Flex. If you go to volume control, you'll notice that USB volume is fixed, meaning that you can't actually change the volume here on the NVIDIA Shield, which is okay because we're going to be changing it on the Flex. So I have it set to infrared IR Bose soundbar, and I don't actually have one of those, which is for good reason because it's not going to interfere with any of my other devices. So I go down here to change IR setup, hit continue. For me, I went to soundbar and I just chose Bose, hit test code, and it's gonna go test. It's gonna ask if the soundbar volume changed. I'm just gonna say yes. So from there, you need to disconnect the USB from the Flex to the Shield and instead connect from the Flex to your laptop. Now that it's connected to the laptop, I open the MiniDSP app. You go to the settings for the IR remote, choose the option for volume up, and just hold volume up here. And now it remembers that. You do the same thing for volume down, and that's it. Now I can control the volume on the NVIDIA Shield remote, whether it's on or not. So I like this method of using the USB instead of going through the optical to the projector, because that relies on the projector actually being on for the audio to work. So a lot of people will say, why not just use Bluetooth? Bluetooth is lossy, whereas a Wi-Fi connection to the Chromecast is lossless. Some people might say, why not just use a Chromecast audio? And I did buy a bunch of these before they stopped making them. And yeah, these are awesome. But again, you need to change the input on the DSP Flex. And so I didn't want to have to do that. I just keep it on one setting and that's it. Never change it ever again. So if this works out, I should be able to just use these two devices. This I don't even need the USB. So just these two devices and I should be able to get rid of this NAD T778. All right, E-cloths. If you guys don't know what's up, I'll leave a link in the description for E-cloth. These are awesome. So that's it. I'm hoping to only use these two so I can actually hide the NeuroStream XD, just because that's the amplifier. I shouldn't need to touch that, right? I'm going to probably set this a particular volume that I want as my max, and I don't plan on ever touching that ever again. I do need the DSP Flex to be on top though, just because I need to be able to access this for the volume control. All right, so this is the back of the MiniDSP Flex. You have your power, you have your the optical cable. For outputs, we have RCAs, the right and the left going into the back of the OSD Narrow amplifier. Again, I'll leave a link in the description to all of these products. So we have left and right in. I could use the subwoofer out here, but I would rather not because I want to use the DSP capabilities of this. So on the MiniDSP app, I'm going to have input left and right, right? So 1 and 2 is going to go correspond to left and right here. But for output 3, which is connected to the subwoofer, I'm going to connect that to both left and right because I want it to be a mono, not a mono signal, but I want it to be able to handle the bass that's coming from both the left and right channel, not just from one or the other. The fourth one is if I wanted to add another sub, I could do that. And then the speakers, the left and right speaker, connect directly to this. So I'm not going to be using the optical in or USB in here. This is just going to be used as amplification. I want this to be the hub. This is kind of like my preamp, or if you're a car audio guy, this is like your head unit, right? This is just the amplifier here. This is the head unit that controls the input sources and the DSP and everything that goes along with it. So the next step is to set the gain. Again, this is very akin to car audio where you want to set the gain on the amplifier and the head unit. So let's say if I'm at minus 20, so max is 0 dB, right? It's the opposite, so I'm turning it up. 0 dB is the maximum volume on this. So if I'm at minus 20 dB from reference, which is 0, loudest you can go, I'm going to set this to a volume that's probably as loud as I'd ever want to put it. And I have 20 dB of headroom in case I want to just go crazy, have a party or whatever. So input 1 is my left channel, input 2 is the right channel. And so the way I have it mapped is input 1 goes to output 1. So left channel in goes to left channel out. Input 2 is the right channel. And I can even rename this, I think. Left, right. So that corresponds to the outputs. So output 1, left, right. Output 3, I have my sub connected to that, so I'm going to just say sub 1. And output 4, there's nothing there yet. So the way I have it mapped is that left input goes into left output, right input goes into right output, and the subwoofer 1 has both the left and the right going to subwoofer 1 output. So a few things that I'm going to be doing with my Magical Beans is I'm going to be setting up the PEQ so I can have up to 10 EQ settings, PEQ settings for each speaker and 10 for the subwoofer. I'm also going to be using the crossover function to figure out where I should possibly cross over and the slope to have the smoothest blend between my main speakers and that subwoofer. I plan on doing some before and after binaural demos, and let's see how that goes. All right, so it is the next day and I finished calibrating this early this morning. I woke up at around 4 to do it, and I spent way too much time doing it just because I guess I'm a perfectionist, but the results are pretty awesome. I did it 2 different ways. The first way is, I will just say, is kind of like a simple version, and the second way I did using multi-sub optimizer, where I'm just kind of not that I have multiple subs, but it was more optimizing for multiple locations, and so that requires a lot more measurements and all that. But anyway, the whole point is it sounds great. I'm very happy with how this came out. And if you add up the cost of that, it's a lot less than using an NAD T778. Again, $3,000, but it also doesn't do as much, right? I would guess that anybody who came here and listened to the system would be impressed. I don't think anybody would say, oh man, that's, you know, sounds a little bit cold, or whatever they might say, or people might say about Class D amplifiers. Nothing like that. So overall, I'm extremely impressed with how this sounds. The MiniDSP Flex, I think, is a big part of it because I'm able to calibrate and make the system sound a lot better using REW, a UMIC 1, and calibration techniques. I know a lot of you guys are interested in having me calibrate your stuff, and I do provide that as a service. I'll leave a link down below. It's joeintel.com/booking. And I plan on having courses ready very soon in case you're the type who wants to do it yourself. I'm gonna give you guys some quick demos to kind of give you an idea how it sounds. Make sure you're wearing good headphones that have enough bass, headphones that are neutral. I'm gonna be using binaural mics from Sonic Presence. You're gonna be able to hear the difference between not having any DSP processing at all and with my 2 different DSP Magical Bean settings. To make it fair, I tried to make sure that all the levels were about the same on all of them, and I actually increased the subwoofer volume on the version that is not supposed to have any DSP. That's kind of cheating because that's a big part in what makes the system sound good, is having the sub properly blended and tuned with the rest of the speakers. So to get the proper level for your sub, I would recommend that you do some measurements to kind of get an idea how your room is interacting with your speakers in the first place. I will link to another video that hopefully won't get taken down with some music that you probably recognize. But for right now, here's some music. All right, this is a ridiculous bass demo. Let's see how it does. Dual 8s. What do you think?
What is that?
So this is kind of where I optimized for the seat here. I'll go ahead and have a seat. Try out some test tracks. So just to give you an idea how loud it is, I'm speaking at my normal voice right here. So this is an open space, so you can kind of get an idea how it sounds from kitchen.
Baby, don't check for me. Taking time out to be and live my life off screen. You always posting the pictures, trying to look like you're winning. I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking in moments we live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, faking your life for the IG. If you got my number, don't let me. 'Cause baby, I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus.
All right, so the first thing I noticed is just the bass seems to be a little bit just boomier, right? Because it's uncorrected. And so you'd expect that. A little bit more sibilant, I guess you could say. All right, so here is the quick and dirty Magical Bean settings. Still wasn't that quick. I mean, probably took an hour to do, but anyway, just to give you an idea. This is not with optimizing for different locations. This is just kind of optimizing for this area where I'm sitting at right now. So the bass should sound pretty decent, but maybe not as good when I move around. So here you go.
Baby, don't check for me. Taking time out to be and live my life off screen. Taking time out to be and live my life. Taking just a day and live my life. Daily personal, we just building and make and take a break or no vacation and chasing blues away. You always posting the pictures, trying to look like you winning, look like you always be working, soaking the moments you live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, shaking your life for the IG. If you got my number, don't ask me, 'cause baby, I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus.
All right, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea. Let's see if I have any other tracks here. There we go. You can hear the bass is boomy. DSP1. Hi there. Hi there. Hi there. That's how you know it sounds good, because they dance, right? You dance when it sounds good. Oh, wow. No, don't touch that, please. Here's something interesting. Let's see how it sounds from a non-optimized seat. This is the one that is kind of, I guess, optimized for more locations. So here's this one. Just listen for the bass. Not sure if you can hear a big difference, but here's without any DSP at all. All right, so that's pretty much it. Do you want to say that's it?
That's it.
So there you go. I hope that kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with just a 2.1 system with proper tuning and the proper hardware. I highly recommend getting some sort of DSP. You don't have to go crazy on the amplifiers like people do, spending a ton of money. That's not where I'd spend it. I'd rather spend it on a DSP and the time needed to learn how to use it. Definitely a subwoofer helps out. Because this Class D amplifier is not super powerful, they claim about 200 watts. I don't know if that's true or not, but a subwoofer will offload a lot of that bass duty. That's what requires all that power. And so this has an 800 watt amp built in, and so these speakers don't need to do that duty. Although the Class D here is actually putting in some serious work, considering that I'm running these floor standers pretty much full range. I don't have to, but I wanted to see what would happen if I cut them off around 30 hertz. So that's still playing a lot of deep bass. I could cut off the frequency higher so that it stresses out the amp even less, but I've found that with these settings, I can play it more than loud enough for my taste. Anyway, that's it. I'll leave a link to all the products I mentioned down below. I'll leave a link to the binaural video with songs that you recognize. And that's pretty much it. If you like the video, make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when I upload new videos. That's it. Take care. Bye-bye.